Hey guys, Tarke here, and here I am with my second in the 3.3 starter trees video. I've already uploaded one centered all around traps, so check that if you haven't. Today's video we'll be talking about Ignite, Self-Cast, and there will be one bonus totem tree in there. Starting off with Ignite, the way I would personally do Ignite would be with either a Elementalist or a Trickster. Elementalist for raw damage, Trickster for more map clear because it has the more attack and cast speed. Using Fireball and Vaal Fireball for map clear, you'll get enough ignite damage with that to get everything done. And then using Vaal Flame Blast and regular Flame Blast for single target. Vaal Flame Blast can have up to 16 stacks of Flame Blast damage, which is a lot. So that'll be the Big Daddy Ignite used to kill the bosses. Use Fireball for everything else. You can use either Flame Blast or Incinerate for map clear, but that'll be much slower than Fireball, and I think Fireball will get enough damage for map clear. I don't think Ignite will be destroying endgame bosses anytime soon. I could be wrong, but I think it'll be a perfectly fine league starter for a mapping kind of scenario. So the tree looks basically exactly the same, be it a Elementalist or a Trickster. The one thing which might surprise some of you is I route through the mana nodes rather than the spell damage nodes. With the way that Ignite's been changed, spell damage does scale your initial damage, but it doesn't scale your Ignite damage. And Carve says, you know, just go through the mana. The mana's better. It makes you more defensive for, you know, mind over matter. Keep in mind that penetration doesn't do anything for your Ignite damage. How the stuff like Elemental Equilibrium, lowering enemy resistances does. Carve also says, as a little tidbit, that the Ziggy D EE, Malachi's Artifice Ring, he thinks that's really good if you really want that extra damage. You should have like an Orb of Storms or something in there, and you could just use that for boss damage. So yes, since penetration doesn't really help you at all, when it comes to Ignite, you want to lower the enemy res, not penetrate the enemy resistances. I'd recommend going for the Golem 4-pointer over Mastermind of Discord. But yeah, so that's that tree, and it looks basically exactly the same as a Trickster, except for we get, you know, the Trickster start and the Frenzy Charge node. So that's sort of that, pretty bog standard. Get the general fire-ish nodes, and that's kind of that. The next one I'll cover on the theme of damage over time is Blight. I'm very excited to play some self-cast Blight action. You can either go straight Blight or Essence Rain Contagion using Blight, but the new Vaal Blight looks very powerful. For raw league starting absolutely zero gear, I'd probably recommend going for a Mind of Matter Trickster. The other option is a CI Occultist, which I'll show you in a second. I do recommend going dual cast still, even on the Trickster. I would run a single Blasphemy Temp Chains, and then get your second curse through a Witchfire Brew Flask, potentially, or through like a curse on hit or something. So, pretty bog standard setup. Get the Chaos, get the damage over time nodes. We don't get Blast Radius because Blight doesn't scale with AoE damage. You can take it just like 2 points for 1 AoE. Meh, not that great, but it's a pretty low level tree. You've got more stuff to mess around with. I am very excited for Purity of Flesh. I think it's amazing. If you want to, you could drop this part of the tree and instead come down this way and grab Potency of Will and do a setup sort of like that. The advantage of this is you get skill effect duration. You already get some skill effect duration from just being a Trickster, so I think that's kind of enough. But if you want to have both, you can have both. But otherwise, I think that routing is fine just to get, you know, a little bit of free spell damage, a little bit of easy res early on, because again, league start, and getting that extra chaos res. For the CI tree, for this tree, even though you have access to 3 curses, I would again recommend double Blasphemy. So Blasphemy, Temp Chains, Enfeeble, and then an Arctic Armor, leaving you with just enough mana unreserved to cast your Blight and do movement skills. And then I'll get your third curse either through a Witchfire Brew or through, you know, a Orb of Storms, Arcane Surge, you know, curse on hit setup, because you will want Arcane Surge for bossing. And you mostly just want defensive curses. But yeah, there's a few different ways you can route this tree. You can route along this way. You can also take this 3-point jewel and then do that. The reason why I don't do that is just because I was trying to make it less points for people. I would recommend getting Deep Thoughts for 3 points, just because Int is Energy Shield, and also you generally want at least 1 mana regeneration node. If you don't need Deep Thoughts, then just do this routing and drop all of that, and it works out as the same amount of points. So yeah, those are the 2 different ways of doing it. I invest into all of the curse stuff. You can also drop these 2 nodes. I invest into all of the curse duration, curse AoE, increased curse effect. Curses are very good for just general mapping. Yes, they're not the best thing on bosses, but for general mapping, they are very, very powerful. It just means you can kind of ignore the entire game. And that's just a way to go as a core starter. If you want more damage nodes, you can just come in here and get more chaos and damage nodes. If you want faster map clear, these nodes at the start of Shadow are very powerful. 4% attack cast speed, very, very strong. Yeah, those are kind of the main things for you to really mess around with. So now to get into some of the self-cast Arc action. I had a lot of people asking me about Arc. Here are 2 trees. So this is like a bog standard sort of just like, you know, Arc tree. Not mind over matter because it's an Elementus running all the heralds. And I do take, you know, these 3 points here. This is a level 95 tree. If you want to cut down points, you know, cut down some of the fluff. Now, it's important to have a decent amount of life. This is 226% life. That's quite a lot of life. You could probably afford to cut a little bit if you really really choose to. That's more than enough damage. If you're playing softcore and you want to go full zoom, gotta go fast boy, I'd actually recommend going for like an inspired learning tree. I route through the cast speed over the spell damage on the inspired learning tree, because if you're going dual inspired learning, so 1 in Templar and 1 in Shadow, you just want to go as fast as fucking possible. So yeah, get all the cast speed here, get all the free cast speed here, go double inspired learning, and just gotta like fly through their maps, just blasting through. The main thing really is the build will feel okay with the buffed up Arc. When you get Impulsor, the build will feel fucking amazing. You'll be like, this is the best build I've ever played. Yeah, it will be decent. It'll probably be fine without Impulsor as a league start, but it's when you get the Impulsor that this will feel really, really strong. You can also take a similar-ish tree and instead do Arc and Lightning Warp in Poet's Pens. That is another way of doing that setup. Ball Lightning. I think Ball Lightning is looking very interesting as well. The main thing with Ball Lightning is to get as much AoE as possible. It looks basically exactly the same as the Arc tree because they scale off all the same things minus the AoE. The only difference is I picked up the AoE nodes. So yeah, that's basically that. I also think that Blade Vortex Elementus is going to be a very strong league starter. I played Blade Vortex during the flashback in SSF and had a lot of fun with it. And Blade Vortex is just going to get better. So yeah. The trees all look basically the same. It's one thing you'll notice when it comes to crit casters. If you get the crit nodes, you kind of have to take the same sort of trees. Some of them come down here. Some of them come up the top that way. But that's basically that. I would recommend getting Paragon of Calamity if you're doing like the, you know, I can't get my Uberlab, but you want to be going Beacon of Ruin, you want to be going Mastermind of Discord, triple purities, you know, run Impulsor. Feels amazing, man. And the bonus Hierophant Arc tree. There's 1 or 2 different ways of doing this tree. This tree is slightly more interesting. I take Precision because I want the dex requirements, but you could also, as I mentioned earlier, take the Shadow nodes at the start here. With all of these things, if you need stat nodes, take the stat nodes. Some people like to go for all of the totems, in which case route around this way. Some people like to actually not take Ancestral Bonds. They can still self-cast. In which case you have a few different options. You could still come up this way for Arcane Potency and Purity of Flesh, giving you 177 life plus very powerful Mind of Matter, which is plenty. Another way you could do it is route down this way to get Scion Life, and then you can also pick up Totemic Mastery. You're going to have to cut some extra fluff nodes elsewhere, but that is one way of doing it. There's a few different variations. You could also, you know, cut that if you wanted to. 186 life, lower points, and then maybe get some attack and cast speed here. That's looking, you know, pretty comfortable. But yeah, you know, all of these trees, they kind of look the same. You know, the tree meta hasn't really changed that much. Just play some variation of a crit tree and you will be A-okay. And yes, those are all the self-cast and 1 bonus totem tree I would recommend for league starting. I do think Ignite will be fine, just to briefly talk about Ignite again. I just would be a little bit wary if you want to do the super endgame content, like doing all the spoopy Elders and the Shaper and the Guardians. Probably wouldn't go for this because we haven't really had much chance to test out the new Ignite, but I think it'll be more than adequate for map clear and getting into the red maps with limited gear. But yes, I'm Tarke. Have a good day. I'm going to try and kill 4 seconds to chase this idea of ad revenue, by the way. Bye-bye.